They say Athena was wise, a warrior, a strategist, a protector. But beneath the bronze and marble lies something darker. This is not a story of glory, it's a trial. A goddess who wore justice like a mask and punishment like perfume. We won't speak in hymns today. No prayers, no praises. Today, we ask what the myths try to hide. What sins does a goddess commit when no one can question her? And why, even now, are we too afraid to call her guilty? Let's begin with Medusa. Not the monster, but the woman. Before the fangs, before the stare, Medusa was a priestess, devoted to Athena. She prayed in silence, lit candles in temples, until Poseidon took her, violently, on sacred ground. And what did Athena, the goddess of wisdom, do? Did she punish the god number? She cursed the girl. She twisted pain into punishment and called it divine. Medusa's beauty was turned to horror, her hair to serpents, her life into a weapon, all because Athena needed someone to blame, and it didn't stop there. Athena didn't just exile Medusa, she made her infamous, a symbol of terror, a warning etched into myth. When Perseus went to slay Medusa, it was Athena who helped him. She gave him the shield. She guided his hand. And when he returned with Medusa's head, Athena placed it proudly on her aegis. Not justice trophy, not redemption reputation. She silenced the victim, then wore her silence like armor. If that is wisdom, then let us weep for the wise. One could say it was just one misstep, one act of cruelty, but the cruelty repeats. Arachne, a mortal girl, talented and bold. She claimed her weaving rivaled the gods. And what did Athena, goddess of crafts, do? Did she encourage her? Number. She challenged her to a contest. Arachne's tapestry didn't just match Athena's, it exposed the gods. Their lust, their lies, their crimes. She showed the truth, and for that, Athena destroyed her work, broke her spirit, and turned her into a spider, forever weaving, forever punished for honesty. Athena couldn't accept truth, not even when it was woven in silk. She couldn't tolerate defiance even when it was art. Arachne didn't insult the gods, she revealed them. That was her real crime. And Athena responded not with wisdom, but wrath. She didn't correct the girl. She erased her. She made her small, silent, crawling, a spider cursed to create, but never to speak. That's not justice. That's vengeance wrapped in thread. A goddess who can't handle the truth becomes no better than the lies she protects. Now let's talk about Pallas. Not the city, the girl, Athena's childhood companion. They trained together, fought together. Until, in one sparring match, Athena struck her down, accident or not. The girl died. And Athena? She didn't grieve. She didn't cry. She built a statue, tall, silent, perfected, named it the Palladium, a monument to guilt disguised as honor. She carried it as a relic, but it was no tribute. It was denial, immortalizing her failure, while the mortal she killed was forgotten. Athena claimed the Palladium protected cities, but who protected Pallas? No oracle, no offering, no voice was raised for her. Athena took the girl's name, turned it into her own title, Pallas Athenaeus, if borrowing the dead could wash away her guilt. That's not divinity, that's legacy theft. She killed a friend and made the memory hers. It's the kind of rewriting only gods can get away with, and we still whisper her name in temples, forgetting the one who bled beneath her spear. Then there's Tiresias, a boy, a seer, a mistake. One day, he walked into the wrong clearing and saw Athena bathing, a moment of accident, not desire. But for this he was blinded. No trial, no warning, just darkness. Athena later gave him the gift of prophecy, as if that made up for the loss. But that's not forgiveness, that's rebranding. A goddess removes your sight and sells your silence as wisdom. Divine wrath disguised as justice. And still, Tiresias is remembered as the lucky one, as if blindness was ever a blessing. Was Athena defending her modesty, or simply her pride? A mortal glimpsed what was forbidden, and her response was immediate cruelty. No grace, no compassion. She could have turned away, could have shown restraint. But gods don't need restraint. They need control. Tiresias's punishment wasn't about the gazite, was about power. A reminder that even accidents have consequences when divinity feels exposed. Athena didn't protect herself. She preserved her myth, and the cost was a boy's sight and his silence. Now let's move from the forest to the city Athens. It wasn't always hers. Poseidon wanted it too. He offered a springsilty, wild, untamed. Athena offered an olive tree, useful, cultivated, wise. The people chose her. Or did they? Some say only men were allowed to vote. Others say women's voices helped tip the scale. But when Poseidon lost and sent a flood, it was the women who paid. Athena, goddess of cities, stood silent. The women were punished, stripped of names, of votes, of legacy. Their loyalty rewarded with erasure. Imagine trusting a goddess to represent you, only to be cast aside the moment it becomes inconvenient. Athena didn't speak up. She didn't defend them. She watched. The city bore her name, but not her protection. She ruled with the olive branch, but made peace with injustice. Her silence was louder than any weapon, and still, she was praised for it. They called it diplomacy. But silence in the face of injustice isn't wisdom, it's betrayal. The kind only the powerful can afford. Let's not forget the judgment of Paris, a contest of beauty among goddesses. Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena. Each offered Paris a bribe. Hera promised power. Aphrodite promised love. Athena? She promised victory, glory in war. Not peace, not knowledge. War. The goddess of wisdom didn't offer wisdom. She offered blood. And when she lost, she held a grudge that helped spark the Trojan War. The wrath of a goddess, not for being insulted, but for being ignored. And thousands died beneath the banner of her wounded pride. Athena didn't start the Trojan War, but she poured oil on every flame. She sided with the Greeks, not for justice but for vengeance. Paris didn't choose her, so she chose war. Wisdom twisted into strategy. Honor cloaked in bloodshed. She watched as Troy burned. She blessed the spears, guided the ships, whispered plans into warrior ears. And when the city fell, she stood proud, not mournful. The goddess of intellect, reduced to pettiness. How wise is war when it's born from ego? Even after Troy's fall, her wrath echoed. When Ajax the Lesser violated Cassandra in Athena's temple, did Athena punish him instantly? Number. She punished the Greeks, sank their ships, drowned their men. The message wasn't protection, it was territory. She wasn't defending a victim. She was avenging her altar. Athena cared more about sacred space than sacred lives. The irony is thick. She didn't protect Cassandra. She let her suffer, then punished those who disrespected her name, not her people. Athena's justice was always selective. She could have punished Ajax directly, could have saved Cassandra, but like with Medusa, like with Arachne, like with Tiresias, let mortals pay for divine ego. Her name became untouchable, her temple more sacred than the woman who bled on its floor. Where was her wisdom then? Where was her power? Gods shouldn't need altars to act, but Athena didn't act for the weak. She acted for her image. And that's the story told, again and again, in bronze, in marble, in silence. Let's return to the shield, the aegis, that gleaming icon Athena carried into every battle. What adorned it? Medusa's head, the woman she punished, the pain she caused, worn like a medal. As if the face she silenced was now her banner of strength, not a symbol of victory but of appropriation. Athena didn't just destroy Medusa. She immortalized her suffering and called it power. Her enemies turned to stone not by wisdom, but by fear. And still, she smiled through the silence of those who could no longer speak. So much of Athena's legend is built on control. Control over thought, over war, over women. She was never chaotic like Ares, never seductive like Aphrodite. She was cold, calculated, distant. She dressed justice in armor and called it virtue. But look closer. Her greatest sins weren't mistakes, they were choices. To punish, not protect. To silence, not support. To sculpt stories in her favor, then shatter those who resisted. She didn't lead with wisdom. She ruled with reputation. and we worship the image, not the impact. And yet, Athena is still praised, still placed on pedestals. Why? Because she won. History, after all, is written by the powerful. Her version survived, polished, edited, divine. But truth leaves traces. In every punished woman, in every silenced voice, in every myth that doesn't quite feel heroic. The cracks are there. The contradictions whisper. We've just been taught not to listen, to bow, to obey, to forget. But Athena's sins didn't disappear. They were carved into the very temples that told us to love. We were told she was wise. But what is wisdom without compassion? A blade, a law with no heart. Athena built herself from reason, but never from empathy. She didn't weep for Pallas. She didn't defend Medusa. She didn't forgive Arachne. Her victories came at the cost of those who trusted her, loved her, worshipped her. She stood above, not beside. The myths call her pure, untouched, perfect. But perfection without kindness is just a cold mirror. And Athena's mirror reflects only silence, stone, and shadows. But what if this isn't a condemnation? What if it's a reckoning? Athena isn't evil, she's complex. She's the myth built to look flawless, but born from fear. Fear of women who speak, women who create, women who remember. Athena punished those who resembled her too closely, the ambitious, the brilliant, the brave, because the gods could only afford one goddess like that. And she chose her throne over sisterhood, over truth, over justice. And so her image endured, sharp-edged, shining, and soaked in quiet betrayal. Why does it matter? Because Athena's myth didn't end in temple-sit lives, in classrooms, in statues, in ideals we're told to admire. She's held up as a symbol of womanhood, of wisdom, of balance. But what if that balance was always built on silence? What if her legend teaches us that to be powerful, a woman must also be cruel? Athena wasn't just a goddess, she became a standard. And that standard punished not only her victims, but every voice that dared to echo their truth. Medusa, Arachne, Pallas, Cassandra, none of them had temples, none of them had prayers. But their stories survived, fractured and trembling, beneath Athena's polished legacy. That alone says something. The truth has always been there, quiet, uncomfortable, inconvenient. Athena's image is spotless because the mess was carved out of history. But if we look again, listen again, question again, we'll see it. Not a monster, not a goddess. A figure shaped by power, defended by fear. And maybe that's the true wisdom, knowing the cost of silence. Athena wasn't the only god who acted unjustly, but she was the only one worshipped for her restraint, while quietly destroying those beneath her. Ares raged openly, Zeus sinned boldly, but Athena? She sinned quietly, with control, with calculation, with polish. That made her more dangerous. She didn't need thunder to ruin a life, just silence, just a glance, just a decision. That's what made her divine. Not power alone, but the illusion of righteousness. She wasn't feared for wrath. She was feared for not being questioned. And now, centuries later, we still hesitate to ask, was she right? Was she just? Or was she simply victorious? Athena's myth is a mirror. It reflects what we've chosen to forgive, because it's beautiful, because it's brilliant, because it's divine. But divinity without compassion is just domination. The tragedy isn't that Athena sinned. It's that we were never allowed to name it. And maybe that's the point of this story, not to destroy her, but to finally see her, clearly, entirely, without the armor of excuses. Athena doesn't need our prayers. She never did. But maybe, just maybe, she needs our honesty. Not worship, not vengeance, but truth. To say, you were brilliant, but you were not kind. You were powerful, but you were not fair. And that matters, because myths shape memory, and memory shapes belief, and belief shapes the world. If we let her legend stand unchallenged, we teach silence, we teach erasure, we teach obedience. But if we tell the full story, we teach courage, even if it means questioning the gods. Look again at her victims. Not monsters, not rebels, just women. Women who saw, who spoke, who created, and were punished for it. Athena didn't protect them. She preserved herself. That is her real legacy. Not wisdom, but survival through sacrifice. But maybe it's not too late to offer something different. Not offerings of oil or marble, but of memory. A place in the story. A name carved not into shields, but into truth. Because no goddess, however wise, deserves to be remembered without her shadows. Maybe the true tragedy isn't Athena's cruelty, but our refusal to see it. We called her untouchable, called her holy, and in doing so, we silenced every voice she crushed beneath her bronze sandals. But truth survives, even when wrapped in myth, even when buried beneath centuries of marble. Truth whispers through Medusa's eyes, through Arachne's thread, through Cassandra's scream. And it says, look closer, ask harder, speak louder. The gods don't fear mortals, they fear memory. They fear we'll remember what they hoped we'd forget. So let us remember, not to punish, not to erase, but to witness, to give name and voice to those denied it. Athena was not the villain, but she was never innocent. She was flawed, brilliant, brutal, divine. Yes, but not beyond reproach. Her story is still being told, not as a hymn, but as a mirror, not as perfection, but as a lesson. A goddess of wisdom who forgot compassion. A legend too long one-sided. And now we balance the scale, not with vengeance, but with truth. If Athena could hear us now, would she care? Would she listen? Would she strike? Or would she for once remain silent? Maybe that silence would say more than any thunder ever could. Because we are not here to curse her, we are here to complete her, to see the full myth, the wisdom and the wounds, the glory and the grief. She was not just a goddess, she was a warning, a question, a mirror held up to power and what it chooses to protect. So next time you speak her name, do it not with fear but with fire. Speak it for Medusa, for Arachne, for Pallas, for every voice Athena silenced to polish her legend. Speak it fully. Let her be remembered not as flawless, but as real. Because only in truth can we find wisdom, and only through courage can myths be made whole. This is not blasphemy. This is reckoning. This is remembrance. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of legacy even a goddess should have to answer to.